from third is Suarez. Goodell comes running in. He's under it, makes the catch. Here's the throw to the plate. It's in the air. He is out! Cameron Rick hangs on! Oh, man, what a play! Deep to right field. Way up there, and way second
All right, and welcome back in. We have a lot to get to because it has been a while since we did an episode. But when we last did an episode, we were talking about the brutal 18-game stretch that had finished the first half of the season. And it is in the books. And let me tell you, it was some of the most up and down baseball you can possibly imagine. The pitching was pretty good throughout it. I think Luzardo had that one blow-up start against the Reds, and I think Abel had a couple ugly ones in there too. So you had, out of the 18 games, you had 3 poorly pitched games, but at the same time, I think you had about 12 poor offensive games, which is not when it was ugly during this stretch, it was 100% on the offense. They got swept in a series in which they gave up 5-6 runs to Houston. How much was it? 5. Yeah.
5.
They got swept in a series in which they gave up 5 runs. Then San Francisco, you lost 2 out of 3 in which you only gave up 7 runs. And then San Diego, you gave up a few runs, but you lost all those games where if you would have scored at least 4, you would have at least went to extra innings in 2 of them. Or 5, I guess. But some good, but most of that's on the pitching side, the starting pitching side, I guess I should say. Not a lot to just like about the offense. The issue for me is just no one is hot to where they can carry this lineup for like a week or two. Like Trey Turner's cooled off. If you could get a week where he hits 400 and steals 8 bases, or you get a week where, Harper hits 330 and has 8 extra base hits, or Schwarber hits 5 home runs in a week. Like, you're just not getting that. It's too much of scratching and clawing to do anything, and it's hard to catch up with them towards the end of this stretch. I what were they, 9-9 maybe, 10-8, somewhere around there in the stretch, but overall it was just not a pretty watch against teams they will see in October.
Yeah. If you factor in the Mets series with the 21 games, I think it was 10-11 they went. So,
Okay.
They definitely treaded water. And before I kind of, dive into what, we saw, like you said, it was extremely up and down. And I think, we've been more frustrated than satisfied, especially when it comes to what they're doing at the plate offensively. The runners in scoring position battle it seemed like a nightmare. I know I'm personally sick of watching them flail at first pitch strikes, but I think as fans, the 162 game season is such a marathon, and we're sitting here and we open up the podcast complaining about how bad they were, and they're going into the All-Star break a half game off at first place in the division. It definitely hasn't been pretty, but they're in first place currently. They're a few games back from the best.
That is playoff fatigue, where that comes from.
Yeah, definitely. And
I get it. I know, but that's where that comes from.
I give you a hard time, and not to say that I'm not frustrated, but when did we become so spoiled as a fan base where we watch the 2010s and all of a sudden we have a first place team and we sit here and bitch and moan over every little thing? But like you said, it's playoff fatigue. We got spoiled in the sense that the first time we went back to the playoffs, we made it to the World Series and had a lead there. Mm-hmm. So, we're all extremely irrational to begin with. And then the first sign of success we had in a decade, it was, the World Series. So we kind of accelerated where we think we should be, which with the payroll is fair. But, they're a few games back from the best record in the National League. The Dodgers just lost 8 straight. So it's happening to everybody. It's not just us. Before the really bad stretch with runners in scoring position. They can't hit with the bases loaded, but they had the fourth highest batting average at runners in scoring position in the league before they went 1 for 26, which, like, you can't just throw out the 1 for 26, but for 4 months or 3.5 months, it was really good. I feel like they don't do damage on the first pitch, but I'm, driving home from Pittsburgh yesterday, and I'm listening to the game on the radio, and they're talking about how the Phillies lead the league in batting average on the first pitch of an at-bat, and they're hitting like 400. I was shocked listening to that. So, like, the offense has been very up, and it seems like more so down, but, like, the record against teams over 500 isn't great, but it kind of just seems like the state of baseball in itself is very average right now. So you'd like to see the record against the good teams a little bit better, but like the way that I'm looking at it, you missed Bryce for 2 months, and the first 2 weeks he was back, he wasn't good at all. It seems like he started to right the ship in that last San Francisco game. He had a decent series in San Diego. So that's not to be cliche, but Bryce Harper is definitely a big addition to get at the trade deadline. Obviously, they have to do more, especially in the bullpen. But, like, you tread water, and you're getting, a top 10 player in baseball when he's right back, hopefully. Nola's coming back hopefully soon, whatever that might look like. It gives you depth, if nothing else. It gives you flexibility to trade a Mick Abel at the deadline and not have to keep him in the rotation because Nola's still hurt. They weren't good, but, we're looking up on July 14th, and they're in first place with a week off. A lot of the guys aren't going to the All-Star game because they're prioritizing rest. I personally think that's a good thing, but, I think with how frustrating the first half's been, they're in a pretty good spot, all things considered.
Yeah, I mean, from a regular season standpoint, they're in a good spot just because of how good the starting pitching is. When, you're getting, if you play 7 games a week, they're pretty much getting 4 to 5 quality starts a week. Like, so, like, you're in pretty much every game. They've not been, I'm trying to think of, like, they got blown out that Mets game that Abel pitched. And, like, even that game against the Reds where Luzardo was so bad, like, the offense still had chances in that game to make it a game. They don't really get blown out, but that just says a lot about the starting pitching, really. The things that worry me, 18th in home runs in Major League Baseball, 14th in doubles. I think 14th, 15th in triples, not as big of a number, obviously, as the other two, but they're not putting a lot of balls in gaps when there's guys on base, and they're just not hitting home runs in general, which is an issue because, they seem to have a lot of cute 2-out rallies that then don't go anywhere. Instead of stringing a walk and a single together with 2 outs, if one of you just hit a solo home run, it actually is a lot more productive than the other stuff. They need to find some kind of power, and honestly, it's not on the roster. It's just not. Bryson Stott is cooked. I don't know what the hell that guy is, but he's cooked. Alec Boehm is what he is. He's going to maybe get to 20 home runs every year by accident. But, that's it. Kepler should be out of here. That's long gone. Marsh has been fine. He just doesn't hit home runs. So, he doesn't do anything to that formula. He's a fine player, like a good platoon player. He's really turned it on since he came back from injury. But, again, just not a power source. Castellanos, I don't know what the hell that is anymore. Some weeks it's really good. Other weeks it's the worst thing you've ever seen. More or less single-handedly lost that one Padres game. Just brutal. It reminded me so much of the freaking at-bat in London with the bases loaded. Oh, my God, bro. I need him to swing first pitch, honestly, because the deeper in counts he gets, the more of a mess it becomes. So if he swings first pitch, just whatever. I do not care. Just do it. But yeah, like up and down the lineup outside of Schwarber, there's no power here. And it's starting to show, and it's going to be an issue in the playoffs. Because if you just think about in 2022 and 2023, when they were absolutely rocking teams, they were hitting home runs for the most part. Like they slugged the Braves to death both times. The Diamondbacks pretty much dead because of all the home runs they hit, and then they stopped hitting them in games 6 and 7. San Diego, that series, they hit a ton of home runs. Hoskins was hot, Schwarber was hot, Harper was hot. The three of them had eight or nine home runs in that series, I think. The three of them just went ballistic. So that's why I harp on that so much, because when they've been successful in the playoffs, it has been because they've had a ton of power up and down the lineup, and it's bailed them out of the fact that they're not a great situational hitting team all the time. So they got to get something at the deadline to make this work. With what's gone on the draft, we're going to talk about the bullpen a little bit, but from an offensive standpoint, I don't know where you make the addition, because the obvious thing is always left field or third. I think at this point I'm keeping Bohm throughout this season, just because unless I'm getting Suarez off the Diamondbacks and I'm moving Bohm to first and I'm putting Harper in left, that's a fix. But other than the positions that need upgrading are second, left, and center. And I mean, really right, but you can't do anything about that. So I don't know what you do, because it feels like there's no one there that's eye popping. I don't think they're going to trade Stott unless, I don't know, if the Twins asked him for a Duran Buxton package, I'd have to consider that. But I just don't know what you do at this point, where the fix comes from, but they need to add some kind of power.
Yeah, you'd have to. I'd drive them to the airport. I'd do more than consider it. But I think that I went on the whole monologue to say things are better than they seem, but there's definitely concerns in the sense that we've kind of, since the Royals won the World Series in 2015, the biggest things that we've seen in the playoffs are how fast can teams get to their bullpens and shorten games, and who hits the most home runs. And right now, those are the two weakest parts of this roster. We've been talking about it for a year or two now. Since they lost to the Diamondbacks, they kind of changed their philosophy and wanted to kind of become that Diamondbacks offense, in the sense that they want to get on base. Game 7, the Diamondbacks kind of singled us to death. Wow, we were trying to hit home runs. And, that's all fine and good, but it's tough to do when 2 off seasons before that you sign these power guys like Schwarber and Castellanos. You built your roster to hit home runs and do all this stuff, and then 2 years into that, you're turning them into, different style of hitters, which, in the philosophy sense of things, their on base percentage is top 8 in baseball as a team. So they're getting on base, but there's not enough players on the team that go along with that philosophy to carry out, like you said, they do these 2-out rallies where 2 guys get on base, but then the next guy strikes out. You built your roster in 2022 with, getting Marsh and doing all these things for the slug, the smash the bell, all that stuff that they put out the year we went to the World Series. And then in 2023 and 2024, it's okay, let's be this cute team that hits singles. That's just tough to do when you construct your roster one way. So they definitely need power. I'd love some sort of package with Minnesota, but I don't think Buxton's no trade clause is going to let that happen. I'd love if they got Suarez from the Diamondbacks and moved Harper back to the outfield, because then you kill 2 birds with 1 stone. You get a righty protection that hits home runs, and you fix the outfield a little bit. If they didn't do it for Pete Alonso or Christian Walker when it was just money, I don't think they're going to do it for prospect capital. Whether the last month or so, when they went 1 for 30 with runners in scoring position, if that changes anything, it might force their hand a little bit, but I'd be pretty surprised. Everything that we've seen in articles kind of points to bullpen help and them thinking the offense is okay. I don't know how you could watch the last month and think that, but yeah. I don't know. I think, you and I are in the same boat where we necessarily haven't been the last few years, in a sense of the prospect hugging has to stop. Every article that's kind of been quoted, whether the Phillies are thinking this way or people are just kind of speculating, everything points to the Wheeler window is what they're calling it, where he's kind of
that's what I look at too. Yeah,
kind of been on record saying that he's done after this contract, not just in Philly, but in baseball in general, retiring. So you have 2 years after this. Schwarber's done after this year. We'll see. Castellanos has another year, so some money's coming off of the books there.
And Walker too. That's 18 fat ones.
Yeah, whether that means you're aggressive at this deadline, getting controllable guys. Like, I'm not the biggest fan of Luis Robert, but if you could get him at a good cost, where it's like a Mick Abel, Dante Nori type thing, at most, I'm okay with it. If you can do a package for Duran and Buxton from Minnesota that starts with Painter and Crawford and probably another top 10 guy, I'd like to keep Tait, if anyone, honestly, just because the catcher outlook is not great, even though JT's been really good the last few months. But, like, Painter cannot be untouchable this deadline. You can't trade him for nothing just to get rid of him.
Right.
But there has to be some sort of price where, I like Luzardo. Outside of like 3 or 4 starts, he's been really good. But you said no to Garrett Crochet last year for Andrew Painter, and now Crochet might beat Skubal out for the Cy Young, and he's a top 4 pitcher in the sport. So, I'm good with getting Luzardo for Starlin Caba as opposed to Crochet for Andrew Painter.
Yeah.
But, like, the window's closing faster than it's ever been closing, and for as good as the Dodgers roster is, they haven't run away or set the wins record like, many people thought they were going to. So, like, it's very open in the landscape of baseball this year. So, like, there really shouldn't be any prospect on the roster or in the system that's off limits for any of the other teams.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people are like, well, we don't want to go through 2012 to 2020 again. And honestly, prospects are part of that, but they also didn't spend any money during that time. You can avoid that if you spend some money, which they did not do. So it's not just all about prospects. It is a little bit, sure, but there's some other things you can do that can help you avoid that situation again. And at this deadline, going after guys that have control help you do that too. Some of these guys are on the good side of 30 still that might be available. So
if you look at what have we spent so much money, we gave Corey Knebel $9 million, we gave Craig Kimbrell $10 million, we gave Romano $8 million or something.
Yeah,
like, you're giving all these relievers. You get Johan Duran for this year and 2 more after it. Like, you lock down a closer where you're spending $10 million in offseason every year to get guys who should be DFA'd halfway through the season.
And then you're usually adding another 2 prospects that are in your top 15 pool. In addition to that, because you're usually getting another guy at the deadline.
Yeah.
That, we talk about Robertson and Estevez.
Yep.
So, the bullpen things have been getting overshadowed in a sense, just how good the starting pitching is. And it either seems like the starting pitcher is going deep enough into the game where they're just asking those guys to get 6 or 3 outs and, they're able to hold on. And, partially if they had a better offense, like the game Romano gave up the walk-off into the park home run, which was the most wild, incomprehensible thing I think I ever watched the Phillies do, but it was so obvious that it was going to happen. Like if they had so many opportunities to score a couple more runs in that game, and then that doesn't matter that, he was put in that situation and maybe he's pitching differently. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not saying Romano's good because he sure as hell isn't, but the offense can help these guys out a little bit and they just aren't, which, it's kind of twofolding these issues and multiplying them, making them worse than they really are, the back end there. But, I was thinking about it. They went in the last year with Hoffman and Strom as all-stars, Estevez as a big prized, deadline acquisition. And you had, like, good Alvarado and Kerkering. But they were your freaking, 6th inning guys, those 2 guys. Now we're looking at, a slightly improved Kirkering, I'd say. I still don't think he's a closer, but he's a setup guy, I think. A worse Strom. And okay, one of Suarez and Luzardo is going to go to the pen. That's what you're looking at right now. So you went from 5 deep plus whatever you thought of the likes of Tanner Banks, and I know I'm missing someone else. So you went from, a bullpen like that to okay Kirkering, Strom, and Banks to me is a ticking time bomb.
Tanner Banks was the first lefty out of the pen in the 8th inning of Saturday night.
I know. Yeah, that's what I don't know what you do, because you need at least one righty bat. And I feel like you need at least 2 bullpen arms. They keep talking about they'd love to get one of blah, blah, blah. I need 2. I do. I need 2 guys, because you're not people keep saying, oh, you're getting Alvarado back. You're getting him back for September. That's it. Yeah. Okay, so you could put him into the ground and he could pitch, 4 times a week during a pennant race or a division pennant race in September. That's cool. Then he's gone. So, and I don't know, I think Luzardo stuff would be excellent out of the bullpen, but we've never seen him do it here. So I don't know how that's going to go. I need more than a lockdown closer. And I'm on the record, give me Bednar, Santana, and someone else over one Duran. And I think having Duran for 3 years would be awesome, just to finally have that lockdown closer. But to me, this bullpen is not one guy away. If Alvarado wasn't suspended and Strom and Rana were pitching better, I think they're a lockdown closer away.
Yeah.
But I don't see it with this current bullpen. It's I need 2 or 3 guys to feel even decent about it. I felt really confident in the bullpen last year, and it still fell apart.
They blew up.
You had 2 all-stars and a guy you traded 2 top 10 prospects for at the back end. You should have felt really good about it, and I'm not close to that right now.
No, and the Red Sox winning $1 million in a row.
You could scratch all those guys off there not selling.
Yeah, I mean they're not selling right now. I'd say this week coming out of the break will be a lot, because they have us,
they play us, yeah,
the Dodgers and the Cubs to open the break.
That's
so
crazy.
they have the hardest remaining schedule for the rest of the season. So hopefully they just come out and lose the first 12 games and just cancel out everything.
So what you're saying is this winning streak came at the worst possible time for us.
Yeah, no, it couldn't. They played the Rockies at the worst possible time. We needed them to play the Rockies, but I don't know what other lefties are out there, and that's what I'd really love, because this isn't ragging on him at all, because he's exceeded my expectations by $1 million this year. Tanner Banks has been awesome for what we expected Tanner Banks to be, but Tanner Banks cannot be your number 1 or number 2 lefty. I just watch him pitch and I see Brad Hand. And now I'm watching Brad Hand come in and try and get Jackson Merrill, Luis Arias, and Manny Machado out in the 8th inning of a game in July. And then that's just going to happen again in October. So that just cannot happen. Luzardo stuff I think would play really well in the bullpen with, he could probably get it up to 98, 99 if you just tell him to go out there and run it for an inning, and the slider would be really good. I worry about the command, because that's his problem as a starter. And now if you're telling him to not throw mechanics out the window, but hey, go gas it up even more, it might start to fly all over the place. I don't know what that looks like.
Yeah. He's also really competitive, which at times has looked good. At other times, it's also blown up dramatically. So,
yeah, I don't quote me on it, but I wouldn't hate if they went the Pirates route, because I think Bednar has another year.
One of Santana and him is a free agent, and the other one has a year. I just don't remember which is which.
So if you get that package done, you still have a little bit of that security that we talked about. It probably starts with Justin Crawford,
Eh,
Bednar is like a 2.5, dude.
Yeah. The problem is after you get past like the top 5 in this system, it is so freaking bad. Like I want to be able to say like
Nori's hitting 380 the last month.
That's the thing. I want to be able to say like Gene Cabrera and Nori, but I can't. You know what I mean? Like that's what the frustrating thing is. And I brought this up late May, early June, where I was like, the pool of guys you want to trade are all having awful seasons.
Yeah.
And Nori's like kind of turned it around, but who the hell was the guy they got in the trade with the Orioles last year?
Chausse?
Yeah, Chausse. He's out for the year. Like,
yeah,
a guy you probably would have traded. I think Castellano, the guy they got back from the Rule 5 thing, he came back. He's either hurt or having a horrible season, and Jing Cabrera's having a horrible season. So those are kind of those 3 guys coming in this year were this year's Clausens and Alligaris, and now you can't move any of them. So it does complicate things a little bit. But if I'm being honest with you, I do not believe the Phillies would say yes to that package with Crawford. I think they'd want a Duran or Clase if they're going to give up Crawford.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of like the Clase Stephen Kwan package. I'll be honest, like Stephen Kwan would be awesome. I don't know the fit.
He like what did I go on like a rant for 5 minutes about? Righty power. What the hell is he? A lefty slap hitter. Yeah. And he's a great player. But to me, that's just making more of the same. And yet, now, yes, he's better than Marsh and Stott at the plate. He is.
Not for the cost.
And also, I don't think he's taking either of them out of the lineup because he ain't playing second base. And
it'd be where Kepler is.
Yeah, so it's not an upgrade where you necessarily need the upgrade. You know, like, so that one on paper, like, doesn't make sense for me. It's just another lefty, low power guy. Doesn't do it. It's got to be that Suarez, Buxton, buy low on Robert. Like, that's kind of the pool you're looking at. Because even O'Hearn on the lefty. Orioles is a lefty, and DHs, and Cedric Mullins is a lefty that's pretty much Marsh with slightly more power. Like the options are very slim. Like it's really those 3 names I brought up are the only difference makers I could think of.
Yeah, no,
maybe Adolis Garcia. Like maybe I don't know. That's a stretch of 4th. That's all I got.
Yeah, that'd be fun, but I don't think it's realistic.
Yeah, I don't know with them. All right, so quickly we'll talk about the draft because that honestly does kind of sound like play a role with the bullpen. At least that's what's being suggested. So 10 rounds are down, and really it's no point in me going deeper than that. But out of the 10 picks, the Phillies drafted 8 college pitchers, which including first round pick Gage Wood, who was the Arkansas pitcher who threw the 19 strikeout no-hitter in the College World Series about a month back. So getting an electric arm with him, and they're drafting a lot of these older guys. A couple of these guys they've drafted are 24. So you would think a guy who's 24 has been in college baseball for 6 years at some level. I think you start those guys at AA because I don't know what the hell like low A ball does for a guy who spent 6 years in college. But I think what they're trying to do here is this is fast track city. Out of these 8 guys, they're trying to find 2 that could possibly be up here in September and see what they got. I think long term they're trying to build some depth in AAA because, Abel and Painter both are not going to be in AAA next year, whether that be being on the major league team or being traded. So, you had to rebuild some depth there, and those other guys are injured, as I mentioned. So that's part of it, but it really seems like they are trying to see if they can Orion Kirkering 1 or 2 of these guys for this season.
Yeah, I kind of got the same vibe, maybe a little bit different in the sense that their strong suit has been developing pitching or developing a pitch specifically on different pitchers. Cotham loves the cutter or the sweeper if guys already have a cutter.
Mhm.
They took a lot of college guys, and I think part of that is kind of what we were talking about earlier, where no prospect should be untouchable. Gage Wood is an electric arm. He's not, the prospect that Andrew Painter is, but like we said, the window's closing. So I kind of saw all these college pitchers going off the board, and it's kind of not necessarily a fast track for September. Although we did see them do it with Kirkring a few years ago, where he jumped 4 levels and came up and contributed a bit. I think it's possible, but I looked at it more so of, hey, we got college arms in the system that, like you said, can go to AA or AAA. We don't have to go through the development process of a high school pitcher like Abel or Painter when we trade Abel and or Painter. So, we get our prospects that we developed out of the system for, Painter for an upper echelon bullpen piece if they so choose to do that. And we have pitchers that we're confident in that we like, Gage Wood specifically, that can jump in and contribute next year where we kind of slotted in Painter to do that. If they brought Wood up, it wouldn't necessarily surprise me. But I think it's more so of an insurance of, hey, we have these guys in our system already. Abel's shown promise at the major league level. I have to believe, even though some of the underlying metrics aren't great, some teams saw the good starts and thinks that they could take a flyer on him. He's still probably got – Mick Abel definitely has more value now than he did at the beginning of the season with how bad things went last year. Mm-hmm. So they missed the sell high window 2 years ago. I don't think they're going to miss another sell high window on Mick Abel. Painter, I don't know. Right now you kind of be selling low with coming off the injury, and the starts in AAA haven't been great. But I think they kind of bought themselves some insurance. The second-round pick, the lefty from Iowa, Cade Obermueller, I looked at that. He's like mid-90s lefty, really good slider. I kind of took that as Scott Boras insurance when he tries to highball them in the offseason with Ranger. He's a lefty who's been, pretty good in the Big Ten. Not the best baseball conference, but good enough. High major batters. He's had success there. So, you kind of have another lefty that's a little bit crafty. Obviously, he's not Ranger. Somehow Ranger keeps getting by, throwing 89, which, is fine by me for this year. We'll see what that looks like in the offseason. But you kind of bought yourself insurance because you don't really have a lefty in the system. Obviously, you have Sanchez locked up and Luzardo, TBD, whether or not he's locked up. But, you bought yourself another lefty that is ranked pretty highly. We got him at 63. MLB had him as 53, but I think they're still probably going to go under slot with him. So, hopefully that works out. But I think the biggest candidate for me that might fast track is that the 5th-round pick, Gabe Craig. He's
24 already.
He's 24, pitched at Baylor, but, the profile is extremely similar to Kirkring. He's 96, 97, can go up to 99, but the slider's 70 grade. So, that's what Orion Kirkring is to a T. So, if they're trying to move a guy along, I think him or Wood is the play. But, Brian Barber said last night after the draft that they view Gage Wood as a starter. Whether or not that's just, coach speak to say, hey, we drafted our first-round pick. We're not going to take a reliever in the first round. That'd be crazy. But whether he, pitches out of the pen this year and then goes back to starting next spring.
Right, which is what a lot of these instances have been.
That's what Garrett Crochet did the year he got drafted out of Tennessee.
Apparently, Chris Sale did it too. Verlander did it, and obviously Price.
Adam Wainwright.
Yeah, a lot of guys have done this. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think Gabe Craig is a reliever and will always be a reliever. So similar to Kirkring, I think they might, move him up pretty quickly. But it seemed like the majority of their picks were centered around college arms that had high spin fastballs. So, the second and third round picks are really deceptive. They don't throw overly hard, but they get outs with how their fastball kind of hides on batters. So, we've we've seen them kind of approach things in the past with a plan. I think last year's draft, I don't know. Obviously we're a year away and they were all high school guys, but I think we could kind of say it's a dud. Like
I think they thought they were trading Crawford last year.
Yeah, like
they just went crazy drafting all those like little slap outfielders, and now they're stuck with all of them. Yeah,
and like Nori's starting to hit a little bit, but like the second round pick was like this dude that was, they went over slot for to prime away from West Virginia and Griffin Burkholder, and like he's hitting 203 in high A. So like they were banking on the tools, and I don't think it's really paying off for them. So like I think with how the window's starting to close a little bit, they were buying themselves depth, like you said, at the top of the system in terms of AAA and AA, and hoping that they hit on, 3 of these first 10 picks. I think, Gage Wood has some injury history, but in terms of the stuff, I think it's really good. So, like, I hope that that's one. And then, one of the Overmullers, the Craigs, and then if they could sign that 7th round pick, Matthew Fisher.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. Yeah. That's also kind of, if they could sign him, this looks like a really good plan because you're under slot with a lot of these college pitchers because where the hell else are they going to go? So you could, this sounds bad to say, but it's the reality of the MLB draft. You could lowball them a little bit. And now this kid who has a pretty solid commitment to Indiana, that other pool money you have can go towards him. So if they're able to sign him, and he at least turns into someone that becomes a viable trade chip, in a couple of years, or becomes a future player. You're gonna look back on this, and if you get 2 or 3 of those guys, probably not 3, but 2 of those guys to become good bullpen pieces for you, and then he becomes, down the line like a top 8 prospect that you either trade or can bring up. It looks like a good draft, but obviously a lot of time between here and there. But that is like the most I'll probably ever talk about a 7th round pick, just because he was ranked 46th in Pipeline's rankings. I mean, there was actually a mock. Someone had him mocked to the Phillies in the 1st round, and they got him to 7th. So when you talk about value, it's very hard to project with the MLB draft, but there was some there. So like I give them some props for that if they're able to sign him.
Yeah, and I don't really know how. Obviously, I understand how the slot value works and stuff. Like we're seeing it in the NFL right now, where the Texans gave their 2nd round pick like the first guaranteed contract in the history of 2nd round picks. So now 30 of the 32 2nd rounders are still unsigned because they're holding out because they want guaranteed money too. Like I don't know if these players and agents will kind of base their decisions off of what the rest of the draft looks like, but like you said, they went under slot a lot. I think the pick that they got him at 221 was valued at around somewhere between $210,000 to $250,000 in signing bonus. Right. Cade Anderson, who is the 3rd overall pick, the 1A of the top 3 lefties in the draft in terms of pitching. Mm-hmm. He didn't negotiate at all. He took his exact what the slot value was, didn't go over anything at $8 million. So unless, if the Phillies can pull together and offer this kid 7 figures with all the money they save the rest of the draft, if they can give him $1 million over his slot value and give him 1.2 or 1.3 million, unless he thinks he's going to be a top 10 pick, getting 5 or 4 or 5 million, because the slot value drops pretty quickly. I think when they drafted Aiden Miller, his slot value was 1.3 million.
Yeah, it does go down after the top 5-ish picks.
If they can give this kid $1 million or 1.2 million and pry him, like you said, he's going to Indiana. It's not like it's this
they're not Texas A&M or LSU or Miami when it comes to NIL money.
Yeah,
and I should use the many college sports connections I have to kind of see what Indiana people are saying about this, but I don't think Indiana athletics will get into an NIL bidding war over a pitcher. We
have to have Schwarber put in a good word.
Yeah, pretty much.
But I think with how much money I'm assuming they saved in the rest of the draft, and the best pitcher in the draft signing for what his slot was at $8 million. Unless this kid thinks he's going to go to Indiana, and no offense to Indiana, but the only top 5 pick I can ever remember hearing from Indiana is Kyle Schwarber.
Mm-hmm.
Like, unless he thinks he's going to be this, top 10, top 5 pick, like, if he can get $1 million or 1.2 million from the Phillies in the 7th round right now, like, he should. I mean, I'm not one to count somebody else's money, but like, he should probably take it.
Yeah, I mean, that'll be the one draft storyline to follow in the coming weeks, because all these other guys, now they took like a shortstop out of Tom's River, whatever, but like all these other guys are going to sign. Obviously, they have a lot of these guys are 3rd or 4th year guys. They have nowhere to go.
Yeah.
So they're going to, it's going to be a little anticlimactic with the rest of them. So we will be back before the trade deadline. I'm thinking our next episode will probably be the trade deadline feature. Man, the MLB app's so screwy because they have all these all-star game and draft stuff popped up right now. But out of the break, the Phillies have a 6-game homestand against the Angels and the Dodgers, the Angels and the Red Sox, and then they go to the Yankees and the White Sox. So
that's a good stretch.
Yeah, and then I mean, again in August, like you got Detroit and Baltimore. We'll see what Baltimore looks like post trade deadline. That'll be an interesting one. The Phillies second half schedule I like. There's a lot of tough games in there, but the stretch that we just spoke about leading into this episode, you don't have one like that the rest of the way. Yeah, you got to play some good teams, but I don't see another like 15, 18 game gauntlet in here. I think you get some reprieve every once in a while. We'll see at the end of the season, like September 8th, you got the Mets at home and for 4, and then the Royals. I'm not sure what they're going to look like, but then you go to the Dodgers and you go to Arizona. So, I don't know what that looks like, but then you finish at home with Miami and Minnesota, who 2 teams that'll be, selling off at the deadline. So I don't know. It's a lot of up and down, which I kind of like, but I want to see a win streak. Can we win like 4 or 5 in a row? Like that would be nice. It's been so much of win 2, lose 1, lose 3, win 4 out of 5. You know what I mean? Like, just try to give me 4 or 5 in a row coming out of the break. That'd be nice.
That'd be great.
All right. Well,